How are you? I'm a friendly lighter bear. I'll teach you 1, 2, 3. A sleepy, hungry, happy bear. Hey, come and hug me.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is Valentine's Day, Valentine's evening, and your old coffin dodger has managed to dodge through the week and to get back here safely in my home to be able to start what I really like to do, to be able to start podcasting again for the weekend and to be bringing you news and things that I find interesting and hope that you will find interesting as well. This one is going to be a real sensation. It's the Hammer of the Week from Ireland anyway. I wasn't going to say that because I quite dislike it when people start off their podcasts or their videos with there's something really exciting coming up and stuff like that, because that makes you have to hang in there and not switch off straight away. But there is actually something quite exciting coming up just in a few minutes. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for those of you who regularly click and listen, or at least pretend to, or at least, acknowledge that I am there and dodging the coffin. And thanks to anyone who subscribed this week. I don't get hordes of people subscribing, but that's because probably it's just not down their street. And who'd want to listen to an old coffin dodger anyway?
Splish, splash, splash, splish. I'm Peppa Pig. I love Muddy Puddle. Fantastic.
I'm sure you're wondering what this is all about, these little voices. I came across some children's toys recently where I picked them up and kind of put them down, maybe not quite so gently, and they started talking. So that's what it's about. I remember long ago when we had toys, we did the voices ourselves. We gave the second toy, we gave it a character, we gave it a voice, and we kind of did conversations between the two. And there could have been, an attempt at an adult voice and a child's voice, or a grunt like an animal. But we used our imagination. And now that imagination is mechanized. It's a mechanical push a button thing, and the toy performs. But it has nothing to do with imagination. And I'd be wondering what a child actually learns from this pushing a button thing. Will the child grow up to be a person demanding instant gratification? Once they push a button somewhere, they expect a response and something to come out at them and to perform. They'd be wondering, I must go into that a little bit deeper. There is no substitute for mommy's voice or daddy's voice. And to be quite honest, if that woke me up in the middle of the night, that toy squeaking at me, I think I'd get up and kill the toy, and maybe even the child as well. I'd give out to that child. Probably would, yeah. I'd probably be taken away by Trusla the next day.
How are you? I'm a friendly lighter bear. I'll teach you 1, 2, 3. A sleepy, hungry, happy bear. Hey, come and hug me.
And what I'm going to do today is I will separate my segments with these little voices and these toy voices. So you can prepare yourself for that as well.
Hello, Wiggle Piggle. Hello, Wiggle Piggle.
Can you imagine this kind of a job where you go into work in the morning and you go, hello, Wiggle Piggle, or something similar all day long, and then that is inserted into toys And your voice is all over the world. Little girls, little boys listening to you saying, hello, little Wiggle Piggle.
Hello, Wiggle Piggle.
So now I am going to start off with the exciting bit. But don't switch off after that, because it will stay exciting until the very end. Most of you will have read the book 1984, George Orwell. Everybody will have heard of it anyway, whether they've read it or not. I think I may have read it way back in the 70s, I think. It was quite popular among the students back then, but I didn't really like it that much. I didn't take it all that seriously and never thought it would relate to conditions as they are today, that many years later. But there's another book. I don't know if anybody has heard of it. I'm dying to hear. No, I'm not going to use that word, dying to hear, because of that virus that's going around. There was a book written way back in 1981. It's called The Eyes of Darkness. And it's a thriller by a best-selling author called Dean Koontz. Koontz. And Dean tells about a Chinese military laboratory that creates a virus as part of its biological weapons program. And I give you 3 guesses where this laboratory is located. It's in Wuhan. And the virus is called, in the book, it's called Wuhan 400. In this thriller, anyway, the virus is considered the perfect weapon because it only affects humans, and since it cannot survive outside the human body for longer than a minute, it does not demand expensive decontamination once a population is wiped out, allowing the victors to roll in and claim a conquered territory. So that is really interesting. And the person who wrote about that here, her name is Kate Whitehead, is asking the question if this is a prophecy or if it is some kind of a pre-warning. You'd be wondering, wouldn't you? Then we hear that Wuhan has historically been the site of numerous scientific research facilities, including ones dealing with microbiology and virology. So he picks up on these facts and weaves a story around it. That's the impression we get. But isn't it just one big coincidence? Maybe these scientists read a lot of science fiction books and base their research and their findings on stuff that they read up on. Maybe the government does that and orders the laboratories then to bring it to life, to bring a work of fiction to life, because it's plausible in the book. That's something to think about. I remember when I was young and when I started thinking about life and thinking about different things. For a while, I wasn't quite sure if I actually existed, and I was wondering, was I just a thought in somebody else's mind and they were thinking the things that I was thinking I was doing? So that got me a little bit confused. But these were only moments of thought. I wasn't going around thinking like that all the time. But later I actually found out that a very famous philosopher called Descartes, he had thought much the same. So today, again, so many years later, I am reflecting upon the thin line between fact and fiction. I think a lot of us have the feeling that we've been there before and that we know what is ahead of us because of the fact that we've seen these things or read about them, much like if we had read that book that I'm just after talking about. we'd know nearly everything about that virus by now.
Tea time. Let's have some green apple tea.
I don't know how many of you believe in prophecy and in predictions, or how many of you are familiar with the book of Revelation in the Bible. Some people I know are very immersed in that, and they can quote certain verses of that in relation to things that are going on. But I have never been that firm with the book of the Apocalypse. For some strange reason, I have never immersed myself in it. But there is one prophet in particular that I like. His name is Alois Erlmeyer. He lives somewhere very remotely in the Alps, and he predicted a lot of things that have come to pass and that maybe can be expected. And it's all about 3 days of darkness and pestilence washing over the land and destroying everything in its pathway, and what to do during these 3 days. And why I like him in particular is that he says the laws which bring death to the children become invalid after the clearing. Then peace will be a good time. I see 3 crowns flashing, and a gaunt old man will be our king. I have no idea what that means, but I liked the part where he says the laws which brings death to the children, which I understand to be abortion, that these laws will become invalid, and that God will start up with a remnant of believers and rebuild society again. Hopefully a little better the next time. Why I mentioned that in the first place is that a newspaper article popped up today. I have subscribed to so many newspapers because there was one particular article that I liked, and they ask you, do you want to be notified? So you get these pop-ups all the time. So I just leave them there, and if I don't like them, I'll pop them away again. And today one came up about the end of the world conspiracies, how 2020 could be Earth's final year. Now, I think they're alluding to conspiracies more than they are predicting anything themselves, but I find it remarkable that they're talking about it at all. It's a tabloid newspaper, it's called the Daily Star, and they say here, psychics have long predicted 2020 as a year of great cosmic importance, with some saying the Bible points to a war of Armageddon taking place in the next few months. And they go on to quote a Bulgarian clairvoyant. His name was Baba Vanga, who died 23 years ago, once predicted the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami that killed more than 227,000 people in Indonesia. However, she also reportedly predicted a second devastating monster wave would strike 16 years after the first. So 16 plus 2004 is 2020. And he or she was blind. If the blind mystic was right, a giant tsunami will strike sometime this year, predicted to hit parts of Pakistan, Japan, and China, as well as Indonesia. Then another psychic or clairvoyant, whose fans include Richard Nixon and Nancy Reagan, predicted the assassination of John F. Kennedy. She also foresaw the terrorist massacre at the 1972 Munich Olympics. The Exxon Valdez oil spill of 1989, I remember that. That was just horrific. And the astronomical rise of Oprah Winfrey. There you go. And in her 1971 book, The Call to Glory, she predicted a war of Armageddon would take place in 2020 and wipe out human civilization. A devout Christian who claimed to receive her visions directly from God, she said the era between 2020 and 2037 would hail the true second coming of Christ. Many God-fearing psychics and mystics have cited the book of Revelation, which says Armageddon is the prophesied location of a battle during the end times of the world in their prediction. I just attached the link later on to the podcast here, and you can read some more for yourself. It goes on then to quote Matthew 16:03, contains a passage about interpreting the signs of the times and so forth. I just mentioned that as well in connection with the way people are thinking and how this is affecting everybody. There will also be a wolf moon this month, and some Bible scholars say that this could signal the end of the world. So there you go, be prepared, folks.
Splish, splash, splosh, splish. I'm Peppa Pig. I love Muddy Puddle. Fantastic.
Earlier today I saw a comment on Facebook and I took note of it for the simple reason that the person who made the comment was very, very close to the truth. And this person said, Sinn Féin have been owned by the Crown for decades. Now they're co-owned, the Crown and the EU. And another person goes on to say, Sinn Féin are the new empire loyalists. They love the sterling in Northern Ireland and love the euro in the former republic. It is how they make their living off the empire. Does not matter which one. I found these remarks well worth taking note of, and hopefully people who made them will listen in and recognise themselves. But before I come to the reason why I am taking note of that, I want to share something else with you. I don't know how many of you have heard of the American FEMA organization. That is FEMA, and it's called the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And it's a totally separate, it's a private agency actually. It's not a government-run agency or organization. And it has been in disrepute for many, many years for having secrets, because they prepare and they live for emergencies. That is their destiny, and their purpose for being in existence is to manage emergencies. And they have managed one or the other emergency, and they have also been associated with false flags. If you remember, there was a marathon somewhere, was it Boston? There was a drill on that particular day, and some people are saying that there was nobody killed on that day. They were all actors, because the same faces have cropped up again at other emergencies. So that's that kind of an organisation that one can very well become suspicious of when you have noticed things and incidents that kind of are repetitive but are so unrecognisable for most people. They have also been associated with, say, flooding in New Orleans. And people were warning against being rescued by FEMA and being brought onto their boats, which were supposed to be a place of safety and that you'd be brought to somewhere else and relocated. But people are reporting and have reported on the fact that homeless have disappeared under the hands of FEMA and them rounding people up and bringing them somewhere else, but they're never seen again. Now, what is true on these rumours and what is not true, that I will leave up to yourselves. You can research away for yourselves on a wet weekend and watch all the videos pertaining to that. A very good Irish example is Amnesty International. Amnesty International is known and understood to be an organisation that stands up for the rights of the oppressed, for the rights of those who are in danger of being executed for the rights of those who have no rights in different countries. But Amnesty International Ireland has revealed itself to be a pro-abortion agency. Not just that they condone it, but they also promote it. Now, that is not something that you expect from a humanitarian agency. So that's just an example to kind of understand what FEMA is about. As I pointed out earlier, there is a very, very fine line between fact and fiction. And perception has a lot to do with it as well. Each person perceives the same thing differently. It's like when you're looking out a window, there's somebody standing beside you. Even then, both see different things because you have shifted an inch or two, or maybe 20, to one side or maybe to the other side. So you actually physically see things differently. And mentally, it's the very same when you're looking at events, trying to process things in your mind. It's all a matter of perception.
How are you?
FEMA has also been mentioned in connection with concentration style camps tucked away in mountains with train tracks leading to them and guillotines of all things, and people speculate as to what they're going to do with these things. But that aside, this is at the moment it's not in Ireland, but what I wanted to tell you is that FEMA has apparently planned on the 3rd of March, they have planned a drill in a town called Ravenna in Nebraska, and that's a very, very small town. It just counts about 2,000 people, and this drill will involve triaging persons infected with an unknown pathogen and at the same time suppressing civil unrest. Now, we know that FEMA, or we understand that FEMA uses actors a lot, and they advertise for these actors as well. So that's a kind of an open secret. If they need amputated actors, the amputated legs for one of their drills, then you will see these adverts in something like Bought and Sold and these kind of magazines. They will be searched for and advertised for and recruited. But it says here that in the town of Ravenna, many of the people living there will also be involved. So there we have this drill with military style people, military style practice of rounding people up who might be infected with an unknown pathogen, an unknown virus. And at the same time, they are projecting what might happen in a real life situation. Say in Cavan here, if there was an emergency called out, well, the first thing you're going to have is people wanting to get enough food stashed away that's going to do them for the week, say. And there are going to be no holds barred as how they're going to acquire that food. There will be looting, and that's in the nature of people. People are like that. They take the loaf of bread out of your hand and just to have enough for themselves. There's no holds barred as to what people can do when they feel threatened. So this is going to be happening anyway in Nebraska, in a place called Ravenna. And the really frightening thing about this drill is that people are going to be injected with a vaccine. You see, they are staging the whole thing. It's going to be a real live drill as to how they would act in a real life emergency situation. But They're going to be actually jabbing people. Now they say that these jabs are placebos, that they do not contain anything else or anything other than saline solution. But I would very much be wondering why they need to go through with the actual jab, you know. So if anybody from Nebraska is listening, or if you know anybody in Ravenna, in Nebraska, please let them know that this drill is scheduled for the 3rd of March and to stay away from the town until it's over, because I wouldn't want to participate in it, not for 1 second.
I'm a friendly lighter bear. I'll teach you 1, 2, 3. A sleepy, hungry, happy bear. Hey, come and hug me. Bye-bye.
I'm going to finish off today's podcast with a second exciting discovery. You remember the last podcast I did? I spoke about this coronavirus having been patented, or that the patent is owned by the Crown. And the Crown is to be found within the City of London, which is not Greater London as we might have thought, but it is a separate state, together with the Vatican, which is a separate state, and the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. That is another separate state. And all these three, they are connected, and they are the ones running and ushering in the New World Order. So the City of London harbours the Pirbright Institute, of which the Crown, the Queen, is a massive shareholder, and also SERCO. I mentioned both of these in the last podcast. So I went on a little investigative tour to find out what SERCO is all about, and the mind boggles. There's a group called We Are Anonymous, and they expose connections, they expose corruption, they expose who is who, and they have discovered that SERCO is the biggest company in the world you probably have not heard of. And it says that it's the mother of all companies, and they own practically everything on the planet. So to find out more, I went on another tour of the internet, and I discovered that they own just about everything from asylum detention centres, hospitals, immigration centres, prisons, traffic lights, schools, air traffic control, weapons, nuclear fusion, and many, many more. And in fact, they even own the right to time itself, having bought the contract to Greenwich Mean Time. And just think of how they were talking recently about the time changing from summer to winter, that they were going to stop that, and that was going to stay at one time. I don't know now whether it was winter time or the summertime, but they were going to leave it at the one and not be changing it around again and again. So if that comes to pass, it is not because the governments have agreed upon it, it's because SERCO has their finger in every pie, and they own the rights to Greenwich Mean Time, so they will be the ones dictating whether we change our time or not. It's quite possibly the biggest company you've never heard of, quote unquote. So this company, it outsources to governments all over the world. They make the nuclear weapons for Britain while making the guns for North Korea. They run many schools and keep people locked up in prisons. They control the airspace in the world. I also found out that they are the owners of the National Health System in England. So that led me to thinking why our health system is failing so badly and why it is irretrievably in shambles the last while back. And then again I connected something else. Now, and you better hold on to your chair or whatever you're sitting on, and hold on to your knickers and don't get a twist in them, because I've done some more connecting of dots. I was wondering why this Prince William is spending so much time in Ireland. I mean, it's not as if the weather is great here, and if they like slopping around in wellies all day and being gaped at by people and whatever. But the thing is, you see, that Prince William is the crown. Firstly, his name is William, and the Corporation of London, the City of London that we're talking about, this separate state that has so much power, was founded in 1694 when King William III of Orange privatised and turned the Bank of England over to the bankers. So he has the same name, William, as William of Orange, and he also, with others, is in ownership of this SERCO. And as a logical consequence, Prince William owns the National Health System. And Prince William is doing a little bit too much sniffing around here, to my liking. So I'd be wondering where our health system is headed and if SERCO can be connected to the HSE. So I went again on a tour of the internet, and I put in SERCO and HSE, and there seems to be a lot of SERCO in Ireland. And just one piece I found here in Google, it said, I didn't even go into it, and what really jumps out at me is that all the jobs that are being offered here on Google, it says National Health Service jobs, SERCO cleaning, SERCO Portsmouth jobs, SERCO security, SERCO psychology jobs, SERCO carers job, SERCO Health UK and Europe. Okay, and here are some more SERCO group jobs. Quality Service and Improvements Manager for Takeda Pharmaceuticals in Dublin. Don't know what Takeda manufactures. I must look at that. I just couldn't resist going just now going to Takeda, because it would be horrible to close this podcast without knowing what it's about. So the Takeda Pharmaceutical Company Limited is a Japanese multinational pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical company. It's the largest pharmaceutical company in Asia and one of the top 20 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world by revenue. So there's the connection again with SERCO being the largest company, the mother of all companies. So they are producing pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical products. So it asks here, what drugs do they make? And I get Actus, Citrus, Entyvio, Nasina, Somac for heartburn, Condyline, podophyllene toxin. Okay, so they make Condyline for condyloma, which is the little warts that men and women get who are promiscuous. They are called condyloma. And there's a stuff we used to use in dermatology. It used to be called podophyllene liquid, and you'd dab it onto these warts and they would disappear. So pantoprazole, Somac is pantoprazole. That's a stomach medication. Pretty good one because I take it. Then they have, so that's the kind of thing that these people produce. And the headquarters is located in Chokoku in Osaka. And interestingly, it has an office in Dublin, another multinational paying hardly any tax and at the same time determining our national policies. So on we go anyway. Side service manager, that's somewhere else. Then we have a lot of finance services. Stands to reason, doesn't it? Service delivery manager, adult social care, terminal services coordinator, Shetland Islands, terminal services. Head of psychological services, HMP, that's in Scotland. Workforce management services, technical lead, SERCO group in England. Then communication, cleaning, night manager, problem manager, SERCO group in England. Patient catering manager, Middlesbrough, England. Deputy team manager, Hempstead, England. Water quality manager, that's also in England. Plenty of jobs there for you. Adventure assistant manager, Moat Park in England. Dozens and dozens of jobs at SERCO. Okay, so a lot of these jobs, there's more and more jobs, and a lot of these jobs are in the health services. So it really needs more investigation as to what they are involved in this country, and they definitely are involved. I have no doubt about it. I have no doubt whatsoever about it, because we know that the prison system here is privatised, the same as in America. Oh yes, and I found out as well that SERCO is also associated with Obamacare. Now, and if Obamacare didn't work out as well as they thought, it has nothing to do with Obama himself or with the American administration at the time. It has to do that it was outsourced to the Crown. And there are associations as well, of course, between American presidents and the Pilgrim Society in the City of London. And I haven't really found out yet whether Obama was that connected or not, but definitely his predecessors were, and I don't know about his successor. I haven't seen any mention of him at all in connection with the City of London. So there seems to be some connection there, and I'm going to have to do some more research on that and tell you in the next podcast if I found anything. But this huge company called SERCO, which is at home in the City of London and is connected to the patent for the coronavirus, the Crown, is owned by Prince William. So it's open to speculation what role Prince William is going to be playing here in the immediate, intermediate, long-term future.
Hello, Wiggle Piggle. Hello, Wiggle Piggle.
I think that's about enough for today, taking into consideration that our concentration span is much shorter now than it used to be. And that's deliberate. It is deliberate that distractions are there to destroy our concentration, because we now have every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, we have advertisements. When we're watching TV, I don't watch TV at all, but I listen to radio. And it is absolutely horrific how often these advertisements come up. And they take your mind away from the subject matter that you've just been listening to, and it's so hard to get back into the topic again. And this is a deliberate attack on people's thinking facilities, on your concentration, because long ago, long before May, people were able to listen for hours with no trouble at all. That's why the Mass, the Holy Mass that we go to on Sundays, if we do go, has been shortened every year is that little bit shorter. I mean, you can get through Mass now in 20 minutes and people are still complaining that it took so long. So that is deliberate. So when you listen to these podcasts, whether it's mine or somebody else's, you hone your concentration capacity again and learn to be able to listen for a longer period of time and to concentrate for a longer period of time and to follow up on things that you have heard. But I'm going to leave it today because it was very deep and there was a lot of information for those who've never heard it before and who've never been confronted with that kind of information before. It is a lot to process. Other people will just probably wave it off and say, well, I know all that, nothing to see here. But I will love you and leave you for now. A special greeting to my fellow Coffin Dodgers, and just remember, you will all be a Coffin Dodger at one stage. You'll all get there. You'll all get to my age. There's no avoiding that. So for the moment, look after yourselves and look out for one another.
Tea time! Let's have some green apple tea!
Couldn't make it up.